Hey guys, you're listening to episode 57 of the School of Intuition Soundcast, and I'm your host, Natasha Che. This soundcast is a self-realization training for the empathic badass, and through this soundcast, my goal is to help you to walk upon this planet with power and grace, and through that process, to help you find your unique ways to elevate the consciousness of this planet as an empathic light being. Now, today I want to talk about my New Year's resolution. Last week I talked about my New Year's ritual, and I hope you at least tried it out. And today I want to talk about something, a promise, a commitment that I made for the new year. Actually, this commitment started in December, early December. I was having a conversation with the universe, and I got a message that, okay, Natasha Che, you are entering a new stage of your conscious evolution. All right, we are upper the game. And so I asked, okay, what does that mean? And the universe says, that means from now on, you are going to take actions or not take actions on things, strictly following your inspiration. And I was like, this is so underwhelming because, what else have I been doing with my life? I have a whole soundcast telling people to follow their intuition, to follow their inspiration, and to follow their authentic desires, and that's the way to go, to lead their life. That seems to be my thing, right? What else do I have to do? What is this next stage? Doesn't sound like it sounds like something I've already been doing. And then the message I got was, well, yeah, you've been doing a lot of it, but we're talking about something that is even more of even deeper commitment to your authenticity, to your connection with the source than ever before. So what we're talking about here is a commitment to live your life strictly according to your inspiration. So I was getting the message, okay? And I was like, okay, so you mean if I make this commitment to live my life this way, okay, according to strictly following my inspiration, that means I'm not going to do anything, absolutely nothing at all that is not aligned with my inspiration. And the universe asked, so do you feel like you are ready to make this commitment, to make this leap? I'm telling you, this is a leap. So then I sat there, I try to fathom the real substance of this commitment, right? And what I realized is, yes, I've been doing, I would say maybe 50% of the things in my life according to my calling, my true calling, my sense of my, true destiny, what I feel is the authentic calling in that given moment. Maybe about 50% of the time. The percentage has been increasing over time. But on the other hand, I'm a very disciplined person. I have a strong mind. And that is how most people organize their life. Most people's lives are held together by two things. If their life is together, okay? It's usually held together by two things, fear and discipline. Getting your act together. What does that mean? That usually means using willpower to do the things you may not otherwise want to do. work hard, eat healthy, don't run the red, go to work on time, don't be late. Adulting, that's what we call adulting, right? So that's how most of us run our lives. And we all know, if you've been listening to this soundcast, if you've been on a spiritual awakening path for a while, there is a shift happening. There is a conscious evolution happening. And the way that we conduct our life is changing. And I know a lot of people, I myself included, and many, many people listening to this soundcast, you've been feeling this calling to conduct your life, to organize your life according to what truly inspires you, what really feels true to you, right? You've been having this calling to follow your truth. So that is happening on the micro level and also on the macro level. So in a sense, it's a conscious evolution. It's a upcoming new paradigm, right? And someone once said, I'm sure a very famous person, I forget who that is, a person says, you are going to be driven by fear until you learn to be driven by your vision. Vision to me equals inspiration, intuition, inner knowing. So for many of us, we are in between this shift. We are transitioning from being driven by fear, organizing our life using fear. And that is a very powerful tool. Don't get me wrong. That's extremely effective. Extremely effective as a way to lead a successful, productive life, safe life. But many of us, we are feeling this calling to transition from being driven by fear to being driven by inspiration, by our vision. And that is not an easy thing, actually, right? So if you've been doing some of that, I'm sure you know. That sometimes is very, very scary because you don't have a sense of control anymore. When you can use your willpower to make things happen, when you know what the protocols are, when you can follow the rules, and when you can follow what you know is right or wrong and what is the right thing to do, life is a lot easier compared to the scenario where you say to yourself, okay, I am going to follow this very intangible thing. Intangible. You cannot see it. It's not in the textbook. And no way you can get a grade. You can get graded by this. Okay? This intangible thing called truth. My own truth. My own intuition. If I'm going to use this as the guiding principle of my life, you basically have no control. So, because there is no set rules. And it is a very scary thing. At least, this is a very scary thing for me. Being very, still a big part of me, very used to that old paradigm that I came from, that many, many people live by. So I was having this conversation with the universe. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me from now on, you're asking me, well, let's just say it's an invitation from the universe. Although it's kind of like a compulsory invitation. You can't really say no because it's time. So my mind was like going over this, right? So I was like, okay, 100% of the time, I'm going to follow my inspiration. What is the consequence of that? That means if in the morning, I don't feel like getting up, I'm not allowed to get up. Okay. So, and if I have a deadline at work or something I have to get done, and I don't feel like doing it, then I'm not allowed to do it. Because I made a commitment, because I made the promise that I'm only going to strictly follow my intuition. Oh, and the other piece of this, it also in this conversation I was having with the universe, is that, sometimes when you follow your inspiration, when you follow your intuition, it is such a illogical thing. There is always a very good reason underneath it. And over time, you may know what that reason is, that you get that message, you get that intuition. But at the time, a lot of cases, you just don't know. I cannot tell you how many times in my life, in my interactions with people, it just happened last week. I was interviewing people for my company. And there were these two ladies I was interviewing. Both of them, I love both people. I love both of these two people. And they were like, I want them both to be on board, but my mind was just clearly telling me to go with one. My intuition just clearly telling me to go with one and not the other. I still cannot tell you why. Right? So, but that's what I'm going to do because I've made the commitment. So, a lot of times you're not given a reason. So that drives me nuts a lot of times because my mind will be wondering, okay, why are we doing this? It doesn't make any sense at all. This is stupid. This is crazy. I don't want to do this. Right? So your mind is trying to control the situation and it's running on a different paradigm than the one you are transitioning into. So this is scary, this is frustrating, this is inconvenient in a lot of cases. So my mind was going over this. I was like, this is going to be a really freaky thing. It can be because imagine if I don't feel like getting up in the morning at all. What am I going to do? If I just strictly follow my intuition, I'm just going to sleep all day. It could happen. Okay? And then, the consequence is I have commitments. I have things I've got to do. Life need to go on. Right? So it's essentially, I was being asked to make the commitment that is essentially telling me to hand over the control of my life to the source, to my intuition, to whatever authentic truth I'm feeling at the moment. So I was feeling very reluctant, to be honest. But at the same time, there is this sense that this is something you've got to do. This is something that will be good for you. This is the next step. This is the next stage of the journey. And so I was like, okay, so I think I'm okay with this. I think this is going to work, but I don't want to be like 100% of it is too scary. So can we put a stop clause on this? It's so funny. My mind was trying to wiggle my way out of this. And eventually I said, how about I try this for a year? Just a year, okay? And see how it goes. If it doesn't go so well, then we go back to where we came from. We go back to the old paradigm. And if it's going okay, then we can continue. Reevaluate. Okay? So that was the comeback from my mind. But deep down, I knew it's only this limited clause condition, whatever, is just a way to get the mind to be on board. And the universe says, yeah, sure, just, do this for the next 12 months. And if you like it, continue. If you don't like it, you're free to do whatever 12 months from now. So if you're not used to having this type of conversation with the source, it can sound a little ridiculous, right? Basically, I am having a conversation with my own intuition, with myself, essentially. And why is this even a conversation? Why is this a commitment that is even should be taken seriously, right? Because I can tell you, most of New Year's resolutions, they don't work out. People do them for a couple months. You go to the gym for January, February, and then you're done. And your credit card automatically gets charged by the gym for the rest of the 10 months. That's how the gyms make money, by you not going, right? However, when you start to live your life more and more following what's your authentic calling, what you realize a lot of time is that here's this interesting thing that starts to happen, is that you have to take your commitments seriously now. If you say something and you don't do it later, there will be ramifications. Normally, if you break a promise, no problem, right? Life goes on. Nobody gets hurt. Well, some people get hurt, but it's not the end of the world. However, the more that you follow your truth, the more you live your life according to your intuition, according to what is true at the moment, what you will find, I think, is that your commitment, things you commit to, carry more and more weights. And you need to be very careful with your words, because your words, your intention, have a bigger and bigger power. There is this synchronicity starts to happen. The more you follow your truth, the more the truth follows you. You know what I'm saying? So I am very serious about any commitments I make these days. And if I make a commitment, if I make a resolution to strictly follow my inspiration, I know it's not going to go well if I don't really do it. And actually it happened. So I had this conversation with the universe early December. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to not try this, but do this for the next 12 months. And I specifically set a vow. I'm committed to only doing things that I feel inspired to take action on, as conveyed to me through my authentic desires, intuition, and inner knowing, with no questions asked, even when the purpose of the action is not clear to me, or even it makes no sense at all. And this commitment also means I'm going to take absolutely no action on things I do not feel inspired to do. And this commitment is valid for the next 12 months. And I made this vow. What started to happen is I realized, oh, this is interesting. Now I'm almost incapable of doing things that I don't feel inspired to do. December was actually kind of a weird month because a lot of this is happening. I'm doing this adjustment, and my mind was try to wrap itself around the depth and the consequence of this commitment that I made. I didn't make any Soundcast episode for the majority of December because you guessed it right. I wasn't called to. And usually I make these episodes on Saturdays, and I would wake up on Saturdays and I was like, okay, are we going to make an episode today? No, we are not going to. And a couple of weeks went by. I started to feeling really guilty about this, because in the past, when I had discontinued for a period of time of making the soundcast, I got people asking me, hey, are you okay? Why are there no new episodes? I'm really looking forward to your new episodes. When are they coming? And I have a terrible time of letting people down. I feel like this is something I should be doing, and why am I not doing it? And I feel guilty and I feel frustrated. But the thing is, ever since I made this commitment, it's like suddenly this funny thing starts to happen. I'm having an extremely difficult time doing anything that I don't feel called to do at that moment. So this is something that, I want you to keep in mind, right? So if after you listen to this episode, you are feeling called to make a commitment of a similar nature, you better be ready to be willing to let go of control. Because all of this is a exercise in letting go. And if you've been living your life authentically, and if you've been living your life following what is your real truth to a large extent, you may find that after you make this commitment, it's pretty hard to get out of it. Even if you want to wiggle yourself, kind of take a ring check sometimes. So, and I can tell you also one thing happened, and it's quite interesting. After I made this commitment, there was one day I was supposed to work on something that had a deadline on. And this deadline, I knew, had a consequence, right? So, but I didn't feel like working on it at all. And I was sitting at my desk. I was not doing any work. Because I literally was incapable of doing the work. And I was getting really worried about this deadline. So I asked the universe, I was like, well, you've got to help me out here. There has to be, some kind of wiggle room I can make, right? Because otherwise this damn thing is totally impractical. Everybody's got a life to run. Okay? What do you tell people? They have real life commitments, responsibilities, and if you live a life strictly following your intuition, like the situation that I was in, I was like, what am I going to do? Now, whose fault it is if I don't make the deadline? So I was having the conversation with the universe. I was getting worried. Like, please help. I've got to do this. I've got to finish this. And the message I got was, well, you made that commitment. I'm sorry. You made that commitment to do only what you feel inspired to do. So this is, it's so easy to say when you are making that resolution. Sounds so good. Sounds so enlightened, right? When the tire hits the road, then there are logistical difficulties. And the message I got was, well, in this case, you're not going to do any work until you discover what is the true inspiration, what is the true purpose of this thing that you're doing. Until you get clear on that, and that has to come from a real place. It cannot be just a, mission statement that you're paying lip service to. Until you get really clear about why you're doing this, the real purpose of this, and you feel authentically inspired by it, you're not going to do this at work at all. You're not going to meet the deadline. So, here's your solution. Get to the bottom of what's really inspiring about this. And I was like, man, this was not inspiring at all. I couldn't find any reason except this is something I had to do. But after I acted out a little bit and I sit down and I digged in and I try to find, try to remember why I'm actually doing this. And reconnect myself with that purpose. After I did that, boom. Somehow it just magically, I was able to get the work done. And also, it felt a lot more enjoyable because I remember why I was doing it. Right? So then I realized, I see how this is going. I now see why I'm making this commitment, because this is really what I would call a inspiration diet, if you will. When you are having a diet, it gets you into a new habit. Essentially, if you any kind of healthy diet, right, is to try to cleanse you of the bad eating habits that you have and get yourself into the new good habits that's healthier for you. And this is the same, because most of us, we are so wired into the old paradigm of drive and motivation, which is largely driven by fear and discipline and willpower. Now, in order to shift to this new paradigm, and in order to own more freedom and fulfillment in your life, sometimes you just have got to make this commitment to go on a diet like this so that you can establish new habits. And the commitment I made was a, pretty drastic way to actually make this happen. And I was able to do this. I was able to be ready for a commitment like this because I've been, practicing living my life this way for a period of time. Right? You cannot just go from eating pizza every night to being a vegan in 24 hours. It's just not going to go well. Your system is just not going to adjust well. But, after you do this gradually, weave a healthy diet into your system. And then one day you say, the next stage of my evolution, the next stage of my journey is to shift entirely into this new paradigm. So I realized, that's what's going on. Anyway, so that is the New Year's resolution that I made. And the whole purpose of me telling you this is pretty damn obvious, right? So if you are at the time when you feel like, I want to live a more authentic life, maybe I am ready to make this shift. This is something you can think about. Can you do this? Can you go on a inspiration diet for a period of time and see how it goes. It's not going to be easy. Can be very scary because it requires a great deal of surrendering. But I can tell you, it's so worthwhile. I already know, I can see how much of a paradigm changer making this commitment is going to be. But you've got to ask yourself whether you're ready for this or not. And if you don't feel, now the first step of this whole process is to have a pretty good sense of what your inner knowing is, what is actually authentic within you, right? So if you don't have a good sense of that, at least you need to have some level of trust in that. Otherwise, this commitment makes absolutely no sense. So this is something that I want to present to you for your consideration. Whether you feel called to do this, maybe not for 12 months. If 12 months feels like too long, okay, if this goes wrong, 12 months, a lot of bad things can happen if this plan doesn't work out. So maybe, smaller interval, maybe the next month, I don't know, if you feel called to try this out or not. In any case, I wish you a very prosperous, very inspiring year ahead. And that's all for today. And thank you for making this soundcast a part of your weekly routine. And if you have not subscribed to the School of Intuition, you should go to natashache.com/school and join the tribe. I will see you there. Okay? Talk to you next time.